Hello, and welcome to Leadership Within, the moment for leaders to reflect on their human experience of leadership. I'm Vanessa May, and I'm joined by...
myself, TK. As always, lovely to be here.
Great to have you here, TK. How are you doing this morning?
I'm actually doing quite well. And when, we've talked about the topic for today and what we're going to talk about, it felt amazing because it really hits home and a lot of my clients are talking about it. So I'm really looking forward to the conversation. How about yourself? How's your morning going?
Yeah, my morning's going good. And likewise, it seems to be quite a topical conversation at the moment with clients. So shall we just jump straight in?
Go ahead.
Okay. So one of the things that I am noticing is that clients are coming to coaching and they are frustrated because they want to get to the next step in their career. And they're noticing that the opportunities are not necessarily available to them in the way that they had hoped or anticipated. And so it might be that there's almost like a missing ladder on the career rung for them. They know that they want this trajectory of up and they can't get where they want to go. And in that place, they're then like, okay, so I've tried everything. I've done this, I've done that, and nothing's working. And I thought that would be quite an interesting conversation to have.
It is in many dimensions, I think. First of all, the meaning of the step up, the motivation people have, and what is it that sometimes people struggle to see?
So shall we start there with what is this meaning of the next step up? Like, what are you noticing?
Well, with my clients and myself, what I'm noticing is, well, a very classic way of thinking about that, which I think, it isn't necessarily something that many explaining to. It's interesting what I've read, Dale Carnegie. It seems like we all hold some kind, well, not all, but many people hold some kind of a scorecard in the sky, the pecking order, the, valuing people based on their titles, their position, their social status. It's been around since we've been around as human beings, and people instinctively seem to know who's further up the pecking order, which nowadays with squiggly careers, with things really shifting faster and faster, the real question is, does it matter as much as it had before?
I love that. So you've mentioned this idea of squiggly careers. And I've also heard of like the career jungle gym, being happy to go up, down, side, all over the place. But also noticing this almost like conditioning for the pecking order and how do I get up? What are you? So for those people that are still in that mindset of actually career means upward trajectory, help us understand what you mean by squiggly careers.
So a squiggly career, and it might not be the same as the jungle gym. For instance, myself, but also some of my clients, means that it's jumping focuses, jumping industries, themes. So you look at someone's career, you don't see a single path. You don't see a straightforward journey that's like the obvious hero's journey. There's various paths that someone has jumped to, straight and veered away. And it looks kind of squiggly. And I guess if you go by your analogy of the jungle gym, it's sometimes, maybe taking positions that might not feel like a natural progression based on the pie in the sky pecking order. It just is strange from a point of view of someone looking at a resume, a CV, a LinkedIn profile, saying, well, it's a interesting, non-linear story.
So what are some of the things that might get in the way of us doing, because on one level it really makes sense. Okay, I've got to be flexible. But what might be some of the things that are potentially getting in our way from us being open to that?
Well, that's an interesting one, right? Because I can give you my opinion, but I'd love to hear yours. It's the moment where you are in a recruitment interview or you are facing some form of judgment, like on if you're sitting by the Christmas table, etc., with your family, extended one, that you might not conform to the norms that people are expecting. And when someone isn't, traditional, conforming to the expected norms, this raises eyebrows. And not everyone is happy to raise eyebrows. Many people now, crave attention, but not the majority. Also, this is something that when you're at an interview, quite often you feel like you really have to explain why have you done that if you're looking for, to switch positions and so on. So many people are really afraid of stepping out of line. I don't know what's your experience, Vanessa, but yeah, that's what I found.
Yeah, I think it's funny. You've got me thinking about so for some very strange reason, I decided to retake my yoga teacher training,
Mm-hmm,
and
yes.
I'm in about month 2, and I'm really struggling
Oh,
on lots of levels. But I was saying to my dad the other day, I was saying, I don't know why the F I did this. What
might
was
be
in my
felt right,
head?
yeah.
Because I'm not going to make money from being a yoga teacher. You know, it it's requires me to have a practice that I keep practicing.
Mm-hmm.
And the depth of learning that you can do around it is immense.
Yeah.
So there's like this part of me that is arguing for me to just, like, let's stop. Like, why, and giving me a hard time about it. And my dad said to me, well, as long as you're not spending too much money on it. I just thought, okay.
As long as,
And
right?
it's really interesting because I think my dad's view is probably a bit of the one that I'm carrying with myself, which is how is this all going to fit together? And the honest answer is I have no clue. I don't know what compelled me to do it. And I can analyze that for ages. But actually, I suppose if I was being really honest about what's it giving me, it's slowing me down and it's having me embody a lot more leadership with myself, like
Mm-hmm.
mindfulness with myself. And so I feel like I'm getting personal growth. But that makes absolutely no sense to someone that cares about me, that knows that, this thing of being self-employed is tough. And I suppose that's something that I am increasingly aware of, is I carry with me several narratives about what success in my career might look like. One is the one that was given to me,
Mm-hmm.
like on a plate from school, which is rise, succeed,
Always go forward,
yeah, earn
whatever it
more,
means.
whatever. And the other, I suppose, is more fluid and what's interesting, what's growing me, and probably everything in between. And I think what comes up for me when we start talking about career is how am I managing my own career? Um, and sometimes, a lot of the time, I actually feel now it's organic, and there is this part of my ego that still does what you said about looks at the pedestals above and thinks, oh, when I'm grown up, I'd love to be like that. And the older I get, the more I realize that my time is running out a bit. But it does make me think about how do we actually start defining things for ourselves in a way that gives us agency.
Oh, that's an interesting one. But before I answer, I had a client not too long ago, which he was switching jobs, and one of the sessions I had with him, he presented a spreadsheet of the positions. He was far along the recruitment process, and there's one that they offered him, and he had everything really written out, all the pros and cons, and a very rational decision. But the one thing that, after quite some time actually in the session, we found out that he's really hung up on is the title. The
Yeah.
title wasn't
So
glamorous, let's say,
interesting.
enough, even if everything else was quite okay. And I feel like maybe not a solution, but a difficult and maybe most important step here is making sure that you try to figure out what this really means for you.
Yeah.
Asking yourself this important question, why? what, it's sometimes maybe shameful for many people that they crave this prestige of a job title. But that's the difficult thing. And when it comes to your question, Vanessa, I think, organic fluidity, sometimes it's great. Sometimes, especially in the periods of, as you said, being stuck, lost, or, in any form, struggling to find a way forward, maybe just sliding, just going with the flow is something that will help us recenter ourselves, wouldn't it?
Mm. Well, and I think that alongside kind of normalizing the context of where we are. So I've been talking to a number of women this past week about their careers, and they've used the word "I'm stalling." I'm stalled. I'm stuck, and and what I notice is then that whole thing about, okay, so in order to unstick myself, I therefore assume I have to be better. That's the reason I'm stuck. Something in me is causing me to be stuck. And what we miss is, well, is that true? Is it about stuckness, or is it about, wow, there are fewer opportunities, fewer paths, things are changing. I don't think sometimes we look at the landscape, we can just internalize and go, oh, well, it must mean something. I must be in control of it because I'm stuck.
But on the other hand, the feeling is real. The frustration that one gets
For sure.
from not, feeling fulfilled, because I guess this is how we can describe it, is a real feeling that, anyone gets. And the question is, there's essentially two major paths of dealing with it. Either taking action to change your circumstances, or the second path, which is to think about it differently. And many people feel that, now the time of action that's the only path. Having said that, the solution may be within.
Can you give us an example?
Well, imagine that, like the example I gave with the job title, right? You feel like, okay, well, if I take this, I will have to get promoted to a job title I had before, and it will take me a year or two to get there. So this feels stuck. This feels frustrating that, I can't blemish my wonderful job title. And, on one hand, what this client has done, and I think a great thing, is actually to go to the hiring manager and renegotiate the job title, which this really helped. And it's a good action to take. Not that you can always do that in certain situations, like, the example you are giving. Some strategies of action may be very difficult. But maybe the question is, like, what really makes you fulfilled in your life? What is it that you really care about? Is this progression your top priority? Or maybe because the circumstances are such that it's difficult to achieve it, there's something else that's equally or even more important for you. Have you thought about that? That's the second route.
I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Because I kind of think, yes, what's more important for me is contribution, probably, and impact. And I think I can do that in ways outside of my job that I probably don't always lean into. But I think that's something to, that's part of why I'm attracted to the yoga, because it's more about community building. Yeah. And yeah, I think so much of this is, well, certainly for me, it's defining it on my terms.
Yes.
And, like the client you describe, I mean, like, if I'm really telling tales on myself, of course, I'd love that title. But then the weird thing is, when you run your own business, you can give yourself any title, right? You can be a CEO, you can be whatever, right, of your business. But actually, does it make a difference? Not really.
Well, does it really matter, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's irrelevant, isn't it?
He asked me, what's your title? And I was like, well, whichever title I give myself. But then again, maybe I said it from a position, like you said, like of power and prestige. Well, I'm running my own business. Thank you very much. But maybe the interesting thing is, like, this is just a couple of words. right?
Yeah.
Everything else about in he had a spreadsheet, he had a real table. Everything else was wonderful, and these few words were really dragging him back. And the real question is why? Why are we adding so? And why are people asking this? Why is it so important for us? Well, because of our natural pecking order. But I guess if you think about yourself, not as a fulfilled person, if you think about yourself in an insecure way in terms of the pecking order, well, this will definitely maybe scratch an itch.
I think what you're saying there is huge about if you think of yourself insecurely in the pecking order. And I think what I recognize is that insecurity can sound different for different people. So for some people,
Oh,
it
yeah.
might sound like, well, I'm always average or I'm mediocre. So I've got something. So if I get there, then I'm not going to be that. But it's like, yeah, right. You'll find another way to be average. I can assure you, if you
It's
still believe
true.
that.
But I
And
guess,
I think
go
it's
ahead.
that. So many of us are saying we're in a growth mindset, and yet actually the mindset with those things is definitely fixed and proving. So I just find it fascinating. We are fascinating creatures, aren't we?
Well, the only ones that talk. So the question is, what other creatures, like your wonderful dogs, for instance? Anyway, but this is still quite fascinating. But what did you have in mind?
Um, I'm not sure what I had in mind. I think what I wanted in this conversation was just to normalize
Mm.
that careers are squiggly now. And if we are holding ourselves to certain standards, uh, or expectations, and then making ourselves feel bad because we're not meeting those expectations or standards, that we actually have the power to redefine and to, you know, um, I don't know. I don't know what the right word is, but to define what success to us means, and it is beyond a title. It isn't about, because often, I don't know about you, but when I say to some of the most uncomfortable silences I have
Mm-hmm.
in coaching, and when I say to people, okay, so you get this role, then what? You know, now what have you got? And it's like just deadly silence. And it's like, well, I feel better. Well, do you?
Well, that's the thing, right? Because you've touched upon something that I also wanted to maybe uncover, which is I don't think we're being taught, nor used to, many of us, especially if you don't have anyone to help you, for instance, like a coach, to have this conversation with yourself. What does this really mean? We just, see everyone else, doing the sheep thing. So, this is the standard recognized norm, and thus must be true. And thus, I'm not really thinking about why, we should always chase the title. We just, put it there. Many people absolutely value it hugely, and to disassociate yourself from this kind of thinking requires a lot of work and facing the questions that many people might not have ever asked themselves.
Mm.
And they might not like the answers. Because, if you find that the title is empty and you've spent so much of your life chasing it, it is
Oh,
emptiness.
that's painful, isn't it?
Well, there's always time. We're always imperfect beings. And, I'm sure that with all these titles came experiences, skills, friendships, relationships. You've helped a great number of people. You've succeeded in however you want to define this success. It isn't emptiness, yet these few words might not define it.
So, if you were to give yourself any kind of title that you could, what would you give yourself?
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, oh, nice. I had a period where I was putting like strange things on LinkedIn in the title box, right? And people told me that it isn't really something that plays with marketing. You're being smart, cheeky, and confusing, and yet I found it to maybe represent me. So I once had a title for a couple of years that I've put there as strapline, which was I sit in the corner and I watch people work. What about you, Vanessa?
Do you know
defines
what?
you?
I think something like play officer or something. Do you know what I mean? Chief play officer or something. I don't know.
That's a good one too.
Like something that's just a little lighter and yeah.
I've got this heaviness about myself, it's like it has to be profound.
Well, I don't think mine's very profound, but I do think.
Well, it doesn't have to be, right?
We take ourselves rather seriously sometimes, don't we?
Yeah.
And so for someone that if we take it right back to the reality of managing your career and managing your career when it's stalled and the opportunities are limited, what top tips would you give to somebody?
First of all, if you really value the title, and it's sometimes and many times there's actually an ability to change it. In fact, many times, if it's just a few words, it is meaningless. But if you assign meaning to it, just ask for it. Maybe, if you're switching jobs, they can give you a slightly different title, and that's a bit of a shortcut. But the maybe longer answer, in my mind, is like, find the space, time, and way for yourself to ask, why do you find this particular title important? And, it's like, well, you might not always get a straight answer, but try to get to the bottom of it. I think it really will answer many questions besides just this one. What do you think, Vanessa?
Yeah, I love that. And I think what I would say is act as if you have what it is that's your next step, like now, like embody it now, I would say. And what I mean by that is rather than this kind of apologetic, like approval seeking, like, oh, if I can just get there, then it'll be, then I'll be worth it, or whatever it is. I kind of think, what would it be like to really embody the the energy of of your leadership and who you are now? So for me, sometimes that's I'm like embodying, like, I have a fierce love about me. Like, I really, I want to have deep, courageous, meaningful conversations. And I want people to really show up as they are. So I've got a fierce love for that. And actually, if I embody that in everything, or many things that I do, then it doesn't matter that I don't necessarily have a job title or a role, excuse me, a specific role that, says, your fierce love officer or whatever. Do you know what I mean? It's like I can just be it anyway. And so I really, that would be my invitation.
Yeah, and it's a great one. And I'll end maybe with a bit of a humorous thing. I'll put a link or even an image in the description of this podcast. You might have heard it or seen it. It's a bit of a sketch. There is a boardroom with people sitting on a meeting, and one person is dressed as Batman. And the saying goes, dress for the job you want, not the one you have.
Oh, I love that. Okay, yeah, please do share that.
I definitely will.
And on that note, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you again soon.